I am the real young master who was acknowledged and brought back to the Ito family, after I snatched the top rank in the grade from the fake young master Makoto. He, in order to make me lose my ambition and stop striving, actually resorted to a honey trap. He spent lavishly, sending his childhood female friends to seduce me, but I'm an honest guy, because I feel too embarrassed to reject them. Every time they are about to succeed in seducing me, I pretend to have amnesia. The childhood friend group, grinding their teeth, keeps rebuilding my affection level, while secretly pulling each other's hair and arguing. How did it become a new account again? What happened to my progress? George clearly stopped studying. How come after amnesia, he's back haunting the library again? You guys just saw that I was about to conquer him. So you deliberately stimulated George, and made him lose his memory. Later, I became the top scorer in the college entrance examination. Only then did the childhood friend group finally realize the truth. And they all angrily cursed. You heartless jerk, a total scumbag. You just play amnesia after getting what you want. You forgot all about us completely. So how come you didn't forget a single exam point? Chapter 1. After school, as I was packing my bag, a striking head of red hair suddenly entered my view. The delinquent girl Willow pressed a hand on the books on my desk and said arrogantly, "George, I confessed to you yesterday, and you said you needed time to think. So, have you made up your mind now?" Although Willow Lu was the daughter of the Lu family in City A, she didn't have the slightest trace of a refined lady's demeanor. She had a fiery temper, dressed flamboyantly, and usually carried herself as if no one was worth her attention. Now, with a proud gaze, Willow stared at me like a predator locking onto its prey and said, "George, are you going to be my boyfriend or not?" I looked at her in confusion and said, Who are you?" Willow's expression froze for a moment, and she snapped irritably, "Don't tell me you lost your memory again." Hearing that, I gave an apologetic smile and said awkwardly, "Yeah, I have intermittent amnesia. The doctor said it's caused by drastic changes in my living environment and excessive stress. Whenever I get triggered, it's easy for it to flare up. 3 months ago, I was taken back and recognized by the wealthy Ito family. My new parents treated me politely, yet with clear distance. They gave me the proper face, bringing me back from the countryside and transferring me into the elite private high school where Makoto studied. My new mother repeatedly reminded me, Makoto isn't in good health. He has a congenital heart condition. Bringing you back home has already caused him a lot of stress. George, you're the older brother. You need to give in to him. But Makoto never treated me like his brother. He never even looked at me directly, until I took first place in the grade from him during the midterm exams. He had a terrible temper. He got so angry that he had a heart attack and was hospitalized on the spot. That night, after evening self-study ended, I went to the hospital to deliver my class notes to Makoto. At the door of the VIP ward, just as I was about to knock, I suddenly heard Makoto's furious voice. He said, "He just transferred here. How could he possibly score 50 points higher than me? Who knows how this dog-fucked guy got his score?" My movements froze. Through the half-open door, I saw Makoto, visibly agitated, along with 3 stunning girls by his bedside. Willow let out a disdainful snort and said, "How else? He probably cheated and forgot to control his score." To vent his anger, Makoto casually threw around money and sneered, "A country bumpkin who only knows how to bury himself in books. He's probably never even held a girl's hand. Whichever one of you can lure him in, hook him completely, and get him addicted to pleasure so he loses interest in studying. I'll give her my villa in the south of the city." Willow immediately chimed in, "A pathetic loser like that, I wouldn't even need a month. With just a crook of my finger, I could make him fall for me and have him following me around like a dog." Beside her, the school beauty Sophia raised an eyebrow with interest and said, "A dog training game? Count me in." Seeing how confident they all looked, Makoto curled his lips into a smile. Meanwhile, his fiancée Laura rolled her eyes impatiently and said, "Don't you girls already have enough simps chasing after you? Whatever. Go play your little dog training game. That way Makoto will actually have time to go shopping with me. He's been studying late every night this month just to compete for first place. It's been exhausting for him." Makoto pinched her cheek dotingly, and the 4 of them soon burst into laughter together again. Outside the ward, I stood there, frozen in place. After a long time, I lowered my head, threw the carefully organized notebook in my hand into the trash can, and turned to leave. Chapter 2. From that day on, the girls launched an intense offensive against me. Heart-shaped breakfasts every day without repetition, limited edition sneakers, and even gaming keyboards, controllers, and consoles for someone like me who was focused on studying. They came up with all sorts of tricks. As an honest person, I really didn't know how to refuse. Every time, I could only accept them awkwardly and thank them politely. Of course, accepting gifts didn't mean I agreed to anything. Among them, Willow was the most enthusiastic. She had a hot figure, a striking face, and a bold, wild personality, well known in school as a rebellious delinquent girl. After she thought we had gotten familiar, Willow asked me to skip class and go to an internet cafe with her. She assumed I was a nerd who would be terrible at games. However, after 2 rounds, I got the hang of it and started carrying her. Afterward, Willow looked at me with shining eyes and said, "George, you look kind of slow and harmless, like a capybara, but I didn't expect you to learn so fast, and your moves are actually pretty cool." After that, she thought I understood her, so she began sharing her hobbies with me, even asking me to accompany her to a concert the next day. The next day, I lost my memory. The timing was perfect. Makoto, trying to frame me, deliberately rolled down the stairs himself. Sensing something was wrong, I simply went along with it and rolled down with him. The Ito family villa had carpets all year round, and since I was used to farm work, my physical condition was as tough and agile as a mountain dog, so in the end, I wasn't hurt at all. But to make the act convincing, I still pretended to faint, and conveniently lost my memory again. That day in the hospital, Willow unusually got angry at her childhood friend, Makoto. Makoto said in disbelief, "Willow, I hit my head and you don't even ask how I am. Yet you're blaming me for making that country bumpkin lose his memory." Willow froze for a moment upon hearing that, then stomped her foot irritably and said, "No, how was I supposed to know George has intermittent amnesia? I spent a whole month trying to win him over, and now it's all wasted." Facing Makoto's dark expression, Willow only left him with one sentence: "Stay away from George from now on." Second attempt. This time, Willow got serious. She let her 2 best friends act as her strategists, working together to push things forward. Her friends told her that when a girl chases a guy, it's easy. If he's inexperienced, a little seduction will do. If he's seen it all, then you win him over through domestic warmth. Eager for quick results, Willow decided to use both approaches at once. Laura personally cooked and invited me to her house for dinner, while Sophia asked me to tutor her, dressed in revealing clothes. That night, the 4 of us drove up to the mountain behind the school to watch a once-in-a-decade meteor shower. The atmosphere was perfect. Unfortunately, I was extremely sleepy. While waiting, I rested my head on my hand and fell asleep, missing the moment when the meteor streaked across the sky, and Willow's reddened ears. Willow slowly leaned against my shoulder and asked softly, "George, what wish did you make upon the shooting star?" Seeing that I was asleep, she pouted slightly. In my hazy state, I heard Willow murmur softly, "My wish is for time to stay frozen in this moment forever." I was deeply moved. These past few days, I had been enjoying myself far too much. It was a feast for both the eyes and the stomach. But if this kind of carefree fun continued, I'd start getting sleepy in class during the day. So yes, it would be better if time really did stop at that moment. And so, the next day, I lost my memory again. Chapter 3. So, this was already Willow's 3rd attempt to win me over. She was clearly fired up by her competitive spirit, throwing away all restraint and reserve, even going so far as to accompany me to the library every day, a place she hated the most. Sometimes, I couldn't help but sigh. With this kind of perseverance, if she applied it to studying, how could she possibly rank near the bottom of the grade every time? Last weekend, Willow felt the timing was right and decided to seal the deal with a dramatic, tragic act. So, a group of thugs holding sticks chased a panicked Willow straight into the restaurant where I worked part-time. At the critical moment, I stepped in without hesitation. However, after knocking down the troublemakers, I ended up getting injured too. A cut was slashed across my arm. At that time, Willow was crying like a fragile beauty in the rain, her hands trembling as she bandaged my wound. Her voice choked as she said, "George, are you an idiot? Getting hurt like this for me?" It wasn't until Willow avoided my gaze and stopped me from calling the police, saying she didn't want to make things bigger, that I finally calmed down and understood. This whole farce was probably just another part of their dog training game. Willow had really gone all out, but it made sense. If taking a beating could earn you a beachfront villa, then I'd be willing to hire someone to beat me half to death too. Seeing me fall silent, Willow seized the chance to confess, "George, I like you. Will you be my boyfriend?" She forced herself to stay composed, but the blush on her face spread all the way to her ears, just like a girl experiencing her first crush. But as I looked at the restaurant in complete disarray, and the elderly owner curled up in the corner, frightened and taking heart medication, I frowned silently. Now, Willow looked up at me, a trace of indignation in her eyes, and said, "George, do you really not remember anything at all? You clearly already fell for me that day. You even got seriously hurt trying to save me. I even confessed to you. Don't you have anything you want to say to me?" I looked at her, scratched my head in confusion, and cautiously said, "Then, could you compensate me for the medical expenses?" Chapter 4. After confirming that I had really lost my memory, Willow first froze in disbelief, then completely broke down. She had tried to win me over 3 whole times, each time getting closer to success, and this time, she had been just one step away from sealing the deal. Seeing her furious and flustered, I quickly slipped away, with Willow chasing behind me. I sped up more and more. As I turned a corner, a slender arm suddenly reached out. Before I could react, I was pulled into a hidden compartment. Inside the dim space, Sophia placed a finger against her lips, tilted her head with a soft laugh, and gestured for silence. Outside the compartment, Willow hurried past, completely unaware that there was a concealed door here. Only after the footsteps faded did Sophia take out a handkerchief and carefully wipe her hands. She said, "Why did Willow look so upset? From childhood until now, this is the first time I've ever seen her get shut down like that." I hesitated for a moment, but in the end, I told the truth. Willow said the injury on me was from saving her, and that I like her, but I don't remember anything. Sophia looked at me for a few seconds. Seeing my completely confused expression, she suddenly burst into laughter and said, "Willow was lying to you. You got that injury from accidentally falling." I nodded blankly, but then saw Sophia suddenly lean closer. She stood on tiptoe, blinking playfully, her warm breath carrying a faint, sweet fragrance as she said, "George, I just helped you avoid a big problem. Shouldn't you repay me?" Unlike Willow's bold and fiery presence, Sophia had delicate features, bright lips, and pearly teeth, beautiful like a fairy from a painting, the very image of a gentle and refined heiress. I was an honest person. Faced with such a beautiful and elegant face, I couldn't help but stutter. What kind of repayment do you want?" Sophia tilted her head and thought for a moment. "Come find me during evening self-study." She leaned closer on tiptoe and whispered softly in my ear, "We can do something you've always wanted to do but never dared to." Evening self-study. Outside the study room, Sophia leaned against the door. She was wearing an ultra-short pleated skirt, her white shirt slightly open at the collar, revealing her delicate collarbone, completely different from her usual cold and distant school beauty persona. In short, she looked extremely seductive. Seeing me walk toward her with a book in hand, Sophia smiled ambiguously and said, "You're here? Have you decided what we're going to do, that thing you've always wanted to do but never dared to?" Inside the study room, I stuttered nervously. "Sophia, it's my first time doing this kind of thing, so I might be a bit clumsy. Later, could you not laugh at me?" Sophia laughed so hard she trembled. "Why would I laugh at you?" Half an hour later, Sophia sat there with a blank expression as she listened to me stumble through a passage of English text. She looked at me expressionlessly and said, "The thing you said you've always wanted to do but never dared to, was practicing spoken English." I smiled awkwardly and nodded. "I transferred here from the countryside, and I've always learned mute English. Makoto always makes fun of my accent and refuses to practice speaking with me. I usually don't even dare to open my mouth." I looked at the stunned Sophia seriously and thanked her sincerely. "Sophia, thank you for being willing to practice speaking with me. You're really a kind person." Chapter 5. Sophia was stunned for a long moment, then suddenly lowered her gaze and laughed. She laughed so hard her body trembled, eventually leaning her head against my shoulder, shaking uncontrollably as she said, "You're really interesting, George. I think I finally understand why Willow won't let go of you." For several weeks in a row, I took the initiative to go find Sophia every evening self-study session. It wasn't easy to find a free speaking partner, so once I started practicing, I went all in, completely absorbed, losing track of everything else. They treated me like a dog in their little game, so using Sophia to practice my spoken English wasn't too much, right? That day, I was passionately reading from New Concept English when Sophia, who had been resting her chin on one hand in a daze, suddenly interrupted. "George, you're pronouncing this consonant incorrectly." As she spoke, she guided my hand and gently placed it against her neck. She said, "Feel how I pronounce it." Sensing the vibration at my fingertips, I suddenly understood. So that's how it works. After correcting my pronunciation, I sincerely praised her. "Sophia, you're really good at teaching." The Kim family had strict rules and had always used a suppressive style of education on her, so she clearly enjoyed my praise. She began demonstrating standard pronunciation for me. When correcting certain deeper sounds, she even had me place my hand against her chest to feel the resonance. It wasn't until I got too nervous and lost control of my hand that Sophia let out a soft gasp, her voice tightening as she said, gently. I quickly pulled back. "Sorry, did I hurt you?" Sophia lifted her gaze to look at me and said nothing for a long time, though her overly fair skin slowly flushed a soft pink. Meanwhile, completely unaware, I kept my sincere smile and said, "Sophia, your pronunciation is really perfect." After evening self-study ended, I packed my bag and headed home, but Sophia called out to me. "George." I turned back. "What's wrong?" The corners of her eyes were slightly red, and there was a hint of shy embarrassment in her voice. She said, "You'll come again tomorrow, right?" After returning home, I was in good form and worked through a couple more challenging math problems. In the middle of it, my new mother knocked on the door and brought me a late-night snack, a sandwich bought from the supermarket. She was also carrying another tray for Makoto. His meal included pan-fried dumplings, wonton noodle soup, and various fresh fruits. I didn't say anything. I simply took my portion and sincerely thanked her. "Thank you, Mom." My new mother hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Makoto has been sick recently and missed classes. George, I heard from your teacher that you've improved a lot during this time. From now on, why don't you tutor Makoto every weekend and share some of your study methods with him?" I nodded and replied calmly, "All right." Chapter 6. Willow stayed quiet for a week, then suddenly started blocking me everywhere. I had no choice but to spend every evening self-study session with Sophia. She seemed to understand without words, and every night we would switch classrooms together to avoid Willow. Occasionally, Sophia would probe gently. "George, do you really dislike Willow that much?" I shrugged and said, "Not really. I just don't remember anything, so I don't know how to face her. And Willow's personality is too extreme. You're much gentler." Sophia nodded in understanding and lowered her head to continue studying, though her cheeks turned slightly pink. Unlike Willow, the rebellious delinquent girl, Sophia, as the student council president, had excellent grades. She didn't go clubbing, didn't dye her hair, didn't drink, and had a gentle, graceful personality with just the right amount of distance. She was a model student in the teacher's eyes and the goddess-like school beauty in the hearts of many boys. Even when Makoto sent her voice messages, there was a hint of ingratiation in his tone. Sometimes, Laura would also call Sophia. She would ask her to go shopping together, but Sophia always refused. Laura would grumble unhappily. "You and Willow have both been acting so weird lately." Before, whenever there was a girl around George, Willow would go crazy. "It's like she's obsessed. Now even you can't be found every night. We used to go shopping together all the time." As a study partner, Sophia was quite competent. So every time after practicing speaking, I would, as usual, praise her, from her pronunciation to her studying, and when there was nothing left to compliment, I'd praise her looks and her gentle personality. Sophia seemed to be encouraged in some strange way. The clothes she wore during evening self-study started to feel a bit off, lighter fabrics, tighter cuts. To be honest, it was a little too alluring, not exactly what you'd call modest. Fortunately, I was simple and dull, and I respected other people's personal preferences. Regarding Sophia's subtle changes, I merely sighed inwardly that city people really knew how to have fun, then calmly lowered my head to continue solving problems. After all, no matter how alluring Sophia was, she couldn't possibly be more intense than math. That day, Sophia and I were studying in classroom 209. She had buttoned her shirt all the way up today, but her flushed face looked a little suspicious, and she kept glancing at me as if she wanted to say something. Ding! After hesitating for a long time, just as Sophia was about to speak, she was interrupted by a message notification. She picked up her phone, glanced at it, and suddenly said with a trembling voice, "This is bad. Willow got the news and is on her way to 209. We have to leave." But just as we reached the classroom door, we heard footsteps coming from the hallway. Sophia looked panicked and quickly raised her hand, snapping off the classroom lights. Seeing her so flustered, I felt a bit puzzled. Why did this feel like we were having an affair? We hadn't even done anything. In the darkness, the footsteps outside arrived almost instantly, stopping right at the door of classroom 209. Willow's voice came from outside the tightly locked door. "George, I know you're in there. Come out. We need to talk." Chapter 7. Realizing we'd been caught red-handed, I knew there was no escaping this time. I was about to go open the door, but my sleeve was suddenly grabbed tightly by Sophia. In the darkness, her eyes shone brightly as she silently shook her head at me. Outside the door, seeing no movement from inside, Willow took a deep breath and said, "George, you lost your memory and don't remember me. I know I shouldn't push you too hard. I just feel really insecure." After waiting a while longer, and seeing no sign of me opening the door, Willow let out a soft sigh and sniffed. She murmured quietly, almost like a dream, "At first, your amnesia made me angry, unwilling, even hurt. I forced myself to ignore you, but I imagined countless times that when you got your memory back, you'd regret everything, come back to comfort me, apologize for your coldness, and take responsibility for the past. But later, I started to feel afraid that you would never remember, and that everything we had, our past and even our future, would all be wasted." A trace of choking emotion crept into Willow's voice as she said, "So I figured it out. It doesn't matter if you never remember. I can take 99 steps every time. George, you only need to take one step toward me. Just open the door and let me in. Okay." Inside the classroom, Sophia had been staring at me the entire time. Seeing that I was looking at the door and starting to waver, her gaze suddenly darkened. The next second, Sophia grabbed my hand and guided it inside her blouse. Before I could react, my fingers unexpectedly touched something soft, then a cool, gem-studded collar chain. In the darkness, I froze on the spot. Sophia leaned closer, whispering in my ear like a soul-stealing enchantress. "George, this was the surprise I prepared for you today. Such a pity the mood was ruined." She looked up at me, her expression pitiful and alluring as she said, "George, I don't want Willow to see us together. Tell her you don't want to see her. Tell her to leave." "Okay." Completely flustered, I could only stammer toward the door. "Willow, you should go. I don't want to see you right now." Sophia was still holding my wrist, not letting me pull my hand back. I had never been in a situation like this before. Out of nervousness, I subconsciously tugged slightly with my fingertips. The next second, Sophia let out a soft hum. It wasn't loud, but in the dead silence, it was especially noticeable. Outside, Willow's voice turned cold as she asked, "Who's in there?" "George, is there someone else with you?" Sophia forced her breathing steady and whispered in a low voice, "Tell her it's just you in there." I wasn't good at lying to begin with. With the tense atmosphere, I became even more flustered and blurted out, She told me to say it's just me in the classroom." Outside the door, Willow fell silent. In the suffocating stillness, I could only hear Sophia's rapid breathing. A few minutes later, there had been no movement outside for so long that I even felt a bit relieved. Had Willow already left? Ring, ring, ring. At that moment, Sophia's phone suddenly rang. The crisp ringtone exploded in the darkness like thunder. Sophia let out a startled cry and hurriedly hung up Willow's call, but it was already too late. Outside the door, after a brief silence, Willow spoke coldly. "Good, very good." The next second, bang, bang, bang. Willow slammed against the classroom door frantically. Her voice was sharp, carrying a hysterical edge as she shouted, "Sophia, I treated you like my best friend, and you stabbed me in the back. When I asked you what to do about George losing his memory, you told me to ignore him for a few months, and it turns out it was just so you could swoop in and steal him from me." Chapter 8. Willow had completely lost it. Banging on the door non-stop, she shouted, "Sophia, if you've got the guts to be a homewrecker, then open the door." Meanwhile, Sophia tightly gripped my sleeve and replied coldly toward the door, "Willow, don't waste your time. You should understand, if you're not the one chosen, then you're the homewrecker." The pounding on the door suddenly stopped. Outside, Willow took a deep breath, then cursed through gritted teeth. "Sophia, shut up. Stop trying to stir things up in there. George and I like each other, it's mutual. If it weren't for his amnesia, we'd already be together. How would it ever be your turn to sneak in and take advantage?" Hearing this, Sophia wrapped her arms around my neck. Her tone was gentle yet firm as she said, "George, don't believe her. Willow is a bad woman. She's lying to you. You're the top student in the grade. How could you possibly be mutually in love with someone so uncultured and chaotic?" From outside came Willow's scream, "I can hear you." Then the next second, bang. No one knew where Willow got a fire axe, but she slammed it straight into the door. Damn, not just Sophia, even I jumped in shock. Soon, the harsh sound of chopping echoed again and again against the door, each strike sending chills down my spine. There was no time to think. I grabbed Sophia and rushed to the window on the other side of the classroom, pushing it open in one motion. The night wind rushed in fiercely. Below the window of classroom 209 was a stretch of dense, soft grass. Standing by the window, Sophia's lips trembled. She looked up at me, as if waiting for me to say something. So I gave her a reassuring look and instinctively said, "You jump." I jump. Sophia fell silent, speechless. The axe blade had already broken through the door panel. There was no time left for language practice. So I stepped forward with my long legs and, in one clean motion, climbed out the window. Before Sophia could react, I had already jumped down. The second floor wasn't that high. I landed on the grass and rolled to absorb the impact. After standing up, I looked up at Sophia and spread my arms toward her. Sophia jumped down. She glanced back at the classroom door, which was on the verge of breaking apart, then looked down at me, trembling with fear. So I said, "Sophia, I'll catch you, trust me," on the windowsill. Sophia was breathing lightly, but her eyes gradually became resolute. The next moment, she leaned forward, like a princess waiting to be saved, closing her eyes as she prepared to leap into her prince's arms. Finally, she jumped. When Sophia fell into my arms, I could hear her thunderous heartbeat. We tumbled together onto the soft grass. I cushioned her beneath me, one arm around her waist and the other protecting the back of her head. She just stared at me blankly. Seeing this, I grew a little worried and said, "Sorry, did you get hurt from the fall? Was it the necklace?" Sophia turned her gaze away, her face flushed, just about to speak, when suddenly, a loud crash erupted from above in classroom 209. The door had finally been smashed open. Chapter 9. I snapped back to my senses. I picked up my bag, slung it over my shoulder, then grabbed Sophia's hand and pulled her into a sprint through the night campus. The wind howled past us. Willow's voice faded behind us. We ran all the way, across the field, over the school walls. I didn't know how far we had gone. Only after turning into a strange alley did I finally feel safe enough to stop. Sophia Kim leaned against my shoulder, catching her breath. Her cheeks were flushed, yet her eyes sparkled brightly. She said, "The Kim family always has so many rules. I've never been this reckless before. But George, when I'm with you, I always seem to lose control." Sophia looked up at me, her gaze bright and soft. I let out an awkward laugh, knowing she was probably experiencing the suspension bridge effect. She said emotionally, "Just now, you chose to take me away instead of Willow. That's when I knew, you must feel the same way I do." I was speechless. Had she been scared silly, in that situation? How exactly was I supposed to take Willow with me? Sophia steadied her breathing but still didn't let go of my hand. At the end of the alley, a few neon lights slowly rotated above a small shop. It was a tattoo parlor. Sophia's eyes lit up. She turned to me and said, "George, want to go crazy one more time?" Inside the tattoo shop, Sophia was determined to go all the way. Ignoring the tattoo artist's advice, she insisted on tattooing the initials of my name on her waist. I told her the letters wouldn't look good there. She refused to listen. The tattoo artist shook his head helplessly and said, "Kids these days." 2 hours later, the tattoo gradually took shape. 2 slanted cursive letters, GW, ran from the pale side of her waist down toward her lower abdomen. Subtle yet suggestive. Sophia was already drenched in cold sweat, her gaze slightly unfocused from the pain. I tried to persuade her. "If it hurts, you should stop. If you regret it in the future, it won't be easy to remove." But Sophia took my hand, pressed it lightly against her cheek, and gave me a gentle smile. She said, "It's okay, George. When I was little, my father often disciplined me harshly, so I'm used to enduring pain. And when I think about the fact that I'm enduring this for you, it even makes me feel excited, feel happy." Sophia spoke intermittently about her childhood trauma and the pain from her family. Unfortunately, my own childhood had been very happy, so I couldn't really relate. I could only awkwardly talk about how I once got chased around by a big dog at the village entrance. By the time the tattoo was finished, it was already late at night. The shop was about to close. Sophia frowned slightly, holding her waist as she stood up. "But there's still one more person who needs a tattoo." The tattoo artist looked at me. I quietly averted my gaze. Seeing that, he immediately understood and waved his hand at Sophia. "It's too late today. Come back tomorrow." Sophia tried to insist a bit longer, but no matter what she said, the tattoo artist firmly refused to work overnight. In the end, she had no choice but to give up. As we walked out of the tattoo shop, Sophia made an appointment with me, tomorrow night at 9, at the shop entrance. Even though her face was still pale, her smile was gentle and lingering. She said, "It's a promise, George. I'll be waiting for you." Chapter 10. The next day, I didn't show up. It was said that night, Sophia waited in that alley the entire time, standing in the rain. On the third day, she came to school and ran into me, who had lost my memory again, at the entrance of the library. Sophia was still running a fever. She looked at me in disbelief and asked, "George, you lost your memory again?" I looked completely confused and even walked past her as if I didn't know her. Seeing this, Sophia became flustered, a trace of hurt flashing through her eyes. Her eyes reddened as she bit her lip, lifting the hem of her shirt to reveal the tattoo on her waist. Her voice choked as she said, "We've been through so much together. I even have your name on my body. George, do you really not remember any of it?" I glanced at the still slightly swollen tattoo and sincerely advised, "Miss, although that tattoo looks pretty good, you won't be able to take civil service exams with a tattoo. Maybe you should consider getting it removed." Hearing this, Sophia's eyes turned even redder. She looked like she was about to fall apart. At that moment, Willow, who had been watching the whole scene, finally let out a mocking laugh. She stepped out leisurely from the shadows, her phoenix-shaped eyes sweeping disdainfully over the tattoo on Sophia's waist. With a cold snort, she said, "Who says those letters you tattooed stand for George Wong? Maybe it's something else, like grown-up wants." Hearing that, Sophia snapped. Willow. 2 school bell-level beauties arguing at the library entrance instantly drew a crowd of students eager to watch the drama unfold. Sophia didn't notice at all. Her beautiful face was almost twisted with anger as she said bitterly, "Was this your doing? You weren't satisfied that George chose me, so you deliberately caused this, didn't you? You made him get triggered and lose his memory again." Although Willow had no idea why I had lost my memory again, she was clearly more than willing to take the blame. She tilted her head at Sophia, her eyes innocent but her smile teasing, and said, "What's wrong? You're allowed to be a homewrecker and steal someone else's men, but I'm not allowed to take reasonable revenge as the rightful one." Sophia stepped forward in anger, raising her hand to slap her, only to be pushed aside by Willow. The tension was explosive, ready to ignite at any moment. At that moment, Laura, clearly just back from shopping, carrying bags, finally rushed over after hearing the commotion. Sensing the situation, she quickly set down her bags and pulled the two apart. "Calm down, both of you. Don't ruin your friendship over a jerk." Willow impatiently shoved Laura away. "This has nothing to do with you. Stay out of it." Seeing she couldn't persuade Willow, Laura turned to Sophia. "Sophia, don't you think something strange? Every time George forgets everything about you, but he never forgets how to solve problems, he still ranks first every time. What if this is all a trick to drive a wedge between us?" Sophia froze upon hearing this. After a moment of thought, her gaze fell on me as she asked, "About what Laura said? George, can you explain it?" Willow stood still, clearly waiting for my answer as well. I scratched my head and said, "Actually, I don't remember doing any of those problems, but every time I see them, they feel familiar, and I can just solve them naturally." Hearing this, Sophia's eyes lit up. "Familiar? Then when you look at me, do you feel anything familiar?" I looked at her face as she asked. After a moment, I opened my mouth slightly, showing a hint of surprise. "I think I remember you." Sophia couldn't hide her joy. "What do you remember?" I slowly smiled and said, "I remember. I once protected a girl in a restaurant. Before that, I didn't even understand my feelings for her, but when she was being bullied, I instinctively wanted to protect her. It felt like, for her, I could even give up my life. That's when I realized how important she was to me. I originally thought that person was Willow, but you said it wasn't." I looked at Sophia, my smile gentle and affectionate. "Now I finally remember, Sophia, that person was you." Willow's eyes instantly turned red as she cursed. "Sophia, you bitch, I'm going to slap you to death." Chapter 11. Willow and Sophia got into a full-blown fight. The battle was extremely intense. Willow was already a delinquent girl to begin with. Now that she had completely lost control, she went all out, swinging left and right, specifically aiming for Sophia's beautiful face. Although Sophia was gentle and slender, she had just gotten her nails done, so when it came to scratching, she was no weaker. Meanwhile, Laura tried to break them apart, only to get hit from both sides. I watched for a while, then got a bit bored and pulled out my vocabulary book to start memorizing words. It wasn't until the security team forcefully separated the three of them that the chaos finally came to an end. Willow's body was covered in scratches. Sophia's face was swollen like a pig's head with a mild concussion. And even Laura had taken a few slaps in the crossfire. The daughter of the Liu family and the young ladies of the Kim and Mu families fighting like this. Even the principal was at a loss. After sending the three of them to the school infirmary, the principal, sweating nervously, began calling their families. In short, he called the parents. It was said that when Pablo Liu heard his daughter had fought Sophia over the top rank in the grade, he was actually a bit pleasantly surprised. He said, "I've heard Willow has been going to the library a lot lately. Has she improved so much that she's now competing for first place?" It wasn't until he arrived at the infirmary that he found out the top student was actually a boy. Pablo calmed down and said, "Well, that makes more sense." The principal wiped his sweat and invited him to sit at the main seat with a forced smile. "Chairman Liu, please have a seat." All the parents present were seasoned figures in the business world. Through a mix of pressure and persuasion, they quickly got to the bottom of the entire situation. Pablo's face darkened as he said, "Willow, treating men like dogs to be trained, is that the strong female lead you keep talking about all day? When will you understand that calling humiliation empowerment is, at its core, just dressing up cruelty as awakening and disguising arrogance as independence? I thought these past few months you had really learned to grow and become independent. And this is how you've been treating others at school. Was this whole thing your idea?" Willow hesitated for a moment. In the end, she didn't mention Makoto and instead stubbornly said, "Yes, it was me, but I don't think that way anymore. I've already decided, once I'm with George, I'll compensate him for everything we bet on. And if that's not enough, I'll even give myself to him." Pablo laughed out of anger. "What would he even want that for? Your grandfather really spoiled you too much. Just wait until you get home, you're grounded." Afterward, I was also called to the infirmary. After explaining the situation, Pablo asked his daughter to apologize to me, but my new father waved his hand with a smile and said, "There's no need to apologize. A man shouldn't fuss over things with girls, that would be lacking in magnanimity. Right, George?" Then he added, "Besides, George has such a poor memory anyway, so there's no need to make amends. I frowned as I listened to him continuously decline with polite excuses, then finally said, Dad, can I go back to the library now? There were only 2 weeks left before the end of term exams, and I had already wasted too much time today. What I didn't know was, after everyone had gradually left, Pablo casually brought it up. The newly found son of the Ito family, he's the one ranked first in the grade. He seems much more steady and grounded than the previous one, the principal quickly agreed. You have a sharp eye, sir. George is not only steady in temperament, but also intelligent and hardworking. When he first transferred here, his grades were only average, but in just 3 months, he rose to first place in the grade, 50 points ahead of the second place. Hearing this, Pablo raised an eyebrow slightly, deep in thought. Chapter 12. After the library incident, Willow and Sophia were both put under strict family rules. Neither of them was allowed to disturb me before the college entrance exams. As for Laura, she would often come by to bring me breakfast and desserts, saying they were made by her best friend and that she was just delivering them on her behalf. I maintained my memory loss persona, accepting everything without question each time, then politely thanking her. Please thank Sophia for me. It was said that very night, Willow stormed into Sophia's hospital room and, despite her injuries, gave her another round of slaps. With final exams approaching, on weekends, I still consistently tutored Makoto. I explained problems in a strictly businesslike manner, while Makoto ignored me completely, smiling foolishly as he sent voice messages to Sophia, asking if she was feeling better. Sophia replied casually, then seemingly asked offhandedly in a voice message, Makoto, do you know what kind of breakfast George likes? Makoto slammed his pen down in anger. He threw his phone aside and demanded, George, is the tattoo on Sophia's waist actually your initials or not? I knew how he felt about Sophia, so I calmly denied it. I don't remember. Probably not. Makoto sneered. As if you'd even be capable of that. How could Sophia possibly like a country bumpkin like you? I didn't bother responding. I packed up my notes and went back to my room to study. Final exams arrived as scheduled. On the day of the math exam, I happened to have a cold. Throughout the entire test, my head felt foggy, and my body broke out in cold sweats. Laura was in the same exam room, sitting behind me. After handing in my paper, I rested my head on the desk for a short nap. Laura hesitated for a moment, then poked me and asked how I did. Pressing my temples, I answered honestly. It went okay. The last problem was a bit beyond the syllabus, but I solved it. If they don't deduct points for the process, I should get full marks. After saying that, I picked up my thermos and weakly stood up to leave. Laura remained where she was, muttering to herself. I wasn't even asking about your score. The grading team worked quickly. On the very night after the last exam, the report cards were sent to parents. After evening self-study, as soon as I got home, I heard my parents calling me upstairs. Study room. The atmosphere was tense. Makoto sat with his head lowered, his face pale. This time, his ranking had dropped beyond 50th place. As for me, as usual, I was first in the grade. Seeing me arrive, Makoto immediately spoke up for me. This time the exam was just too hard, that's why I didn't do well. It definitely wasn't because my brother taught me the wrong things on purpose. Mom, Dad, don't blame him, I said calmly. What? You think everything I taught was wrong? Is that why you never listened during tutoring and kept going to Sophia for private help instead? My new father cut in with a dark expression. That's enough. George, you knew Makoto had been sick and missed classes because of you, so how exactly did you tutor him? Makoto let out a long sigh, as if he had suffered a huge blow. Watching them anxiously comfort Makoto, I suddenly felt it was all meaningless. I stopped arguing, turned around, and went straight back to my room. I locked the door, sat at my desk, and began working on practice papers, ignoring the loud banging from outside. George, what kind of attitude is this? Do you even consider us your parents? Grades don't represent character or upbringing. If you keep acting like this, don't blame us for being harsh. I paid them no attention, put on my headphones, and calmly continued solving problems. Chapter 13. The next day, classes proceeded as usual during the day, and in the evening, the grade-level parent meeting was held. For the wealthy, time is extremely precious. This was the only occasion each year where all parents were required to attend at Ito Aristocratic Academy. Though called a parent meeting, it was in reality a showcase of academic achievements and a stage for families to display their wealth. In the school auditorium, after the principal finished speaking, they moved on to the awards and photo session, first recognizing the top 10 in each subject, then the top 10 overall. During this segment, students and their parents would go on stage together to receive awards and take photos. Makoto made it into the top 10 for English. My new father went on stage with him to receive the award and, on behalf of the family, donated a collection of rare English books to the school. In front of the cameras, he wrapped an arm around Makoto's shoulder, his face full of pride. Then came the main event, the top 10 overall. When my name was called, I closed my book and stood up alone from my seat in the corner, walking toward the brightly lit stage. After following the hostess to the center of the stage, I realized that there was no one standing beside me. Subconsciously, I looked toward where Makoto and my father were seated. My new father sat there calmly, making no move to stand. The other 9 pairs of students and parents quickly took their places. Seeing me standing alone, the principal looked puzzled and repeated toward the audience. Would the parent of the first-place student, George, please come up for the photo? My new father acted as if he hadn't heard anything and even reached out to pat Makoto on the shoulder. Noticing my gaze, Makoto shrugged at me and gave a smug, provocative smile. The principal repeated once more. Is George's parent here? In the audience, there was complete silence. No one responded. Whispers gradually spread through the crowd. Someone said, "It seems the Ito family doesn't value this newly found son very much." Another voice added, "No matter what, they shouldn't embarrass the child like this in public." Others murmured, "I heard he's already scheming at such a young age, he's even sent his younger brother to the hospital several times." Countless gazes pierced into me, curious, mocking, sympathetic, under everyone's watchful eyes. I stood alone at the center of the stage, completely isolated. This was supposed to be my moment of glory, yet the stage lights only made my eyes sting. My face was pale, but I still straightened my back and said as calmly as I could to the principal, "I'm sorry, my parent may have stepped away temporarily. I can receive the award by myself. Please adjust the position so the photo can proceed." The principal wiped the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief and was about to signal the staff to rearrange the stage. At that moment, a deep and steady male voice sounded from the VIP seats below. He said, "Since no one is coming up, I'll accept this honor on his behalf. No need to adjust the positions. I'll stand in as George's parent." Chapter 14. Amid the crowd's astonished exclamations, Pablo calmly stood up from the front row board members' seats. Dressed in a tailored suit, he walked onto the stage with steady steps. The principal was still a bit stunned. "Chairman Liu, this." Pablo's gaze swept over Makoto and my father sitting awkwardly below the stage. His tone was calm as he said, "Isn't there a missing parent? I'll take that place. Any problem?" The principal immediately nodded. "No problem. Of course not." A wave of hushed but intense discussion broke out in the audience. "Am I seeing this right?" The CEO of the Liu group stepped in personally. "The Ito family really went too far today. The kid got first place in the grade, no matter what mistakes he made before. This isn't the kind of occasion to embarrass him." Someone else said, "George, my daughter mentioned him before. She said he's quiet and focused on studying, but very patient whenever people ask him questions. I don't believe a kid like that could be that bad." Pablo walked to my side and stopped, signaling the principal with his eyes. It was time to proceed. Oddly enough, when I had been standing alone just now, I could remain calm, but now that someone was beside me, I became a bit flustered and stumbled over my words. You're going on stage for me, then what about Willow?" Pablo chuckled. "When has that girl ever won an award?" Finally, the principal approached us with the hostess. I took the certificate from the principal, while Pablo held up the heavy golden trophy for me. Bang! Confetti cannons went off. Golden ribbons filled the air, drifting down onto my head and shoulders. At last, thunderous applause erupted from the audience. Seeing this scene, the expressions of my father and Makoto in the audience turned pale. Meanwhile, Pablo maintained a composed smile in front of the cameras as he spoke in a measured tone. "Gio, may I call you that?" After I nodded, he continued in a low voice. "I've been thinking for a long time about how to make up for Willow's little prank. I wasn't sure what you might like." He handed me the golden trophy and said word by word, "So, taking this opportunity to celebrate you getting first place in the grade, I've decided to set up a scholarship in your name at this school. The funds will be deducted from Willow's trust fund. How does that sound?" I opened my mouth, but before I could respond, Pablo Liu had already announced the decision to the principal. Holding the microphone, the principal beamed. "Thank you, Chairman Liu, for your generous donation." Another round of applause broke out from the audience. The father and son of the Ito family could no longer stay. Before the meeting even ended, they hurriedly left together. Chapter 15. Makoto was hospitalized again. Summer vacation had just begun. The atmosphere in the Ito family villa was tense, and my parents treated me with even more coldness than before. During dinner one day, after thinking it over, I took the initiative to say, "Mr. Ito, Mrs. Ito, next semester I'd like to apply to live on campus." They slammed their chopsticks down in anger. "Live on campus? What will people think of the Ito family? George, do you think that now you've found someone backing you, You've grown wings and we can't control you anymore. As long as you haven't graduated, we are still your guardians. I said nothing, finished dinner hastily, and went upstairs. The next day, I left early in the morning and spent the entire day studying in the library. In the evening, when I returned to the Ito residence, I found the villa completely empty, no servants, no bodyguards. Even the door password had been changed. It seemed this was yet another way of disciplining me. Locked outside, I could only sit on the steps with my bag, staring blankly. At that moment, Laura passed by carrying several shopping bags. The Ito and Mu families were longtime associates, and their villas were close to each other. She hesitated for a moment, then walked over and said, "Makoto said they all went to the Maldives on vacation. You didn't go with them." I answered honestly. "No one told me. Their phones are off, and they changed the villa password. I can't get in." Laura paused, then after a moment of hesitation, sat down beside me on the steps. We sat there in silence. She tucked her hair behind her ear, blushing slightly as she spoke. "So, you have nowhere to go now?" I nodded. Laura asked, "Finished your problem sets?" I nodded again. She continued, "And now you're feeling lost, not knowing what to do?" I nodded once more. Laura clapped her hands and said, "Great, then come shopping with me." I fell silent for a moment, then changed the subject. "Laura, can you do me a favor?" She blinked and asked, "What favor? If I help you, will you go shopping with me?" I sighed. "About that, first, take me to your house. I need to borrow something." Chapter 16. Half an hour later, carrying an axe I had dug out from the Mu family's basement, I kicked open the already half-destroyed front door of the Ito villa. I handed the axe back to the stunned Laura Mu and said, "Thanks. I learned this move from your best friend." Without waiting for her reaction, I went straight upstairs to pack my belongings. After packing, I thought for a moment, then went back downstairs, picked up the axe again, returned upstairs, and smashed every single door in the villa to pieces. They locked me out, right? Then no one gets to have doors anymore. After destroying all the doors, I also stopped by Makoto's room and smashed his computer, figurines, and everything else into pieces. After finishing all that, I felt completely satisfied and dragged my suitcase downstairs, only to suddenly notice Laura standing at the doorway of Makoto's room. She picked up a piece of scattered draft paper. Aside from meaningless scribbles, a name was written on it, Sophia. I hesitated before speaking. "You." Unexpectedly, Laura only glanced at it once and casually tossed it back to the floor. Seeing my complicated expression, she pressed her lips together and said, "Makoto and I were engaged since childhood. Even though I'm his fiancé, anyone can see that he likes Sophia, and sometimes Willow too. In our circle, most arranged marriages are just for show, like my parents. True mutual love like Willow's parents is actually rare." I was speechless. Although I couldn't understand why people would get married without liking each other, I decided to respect the unique preferences of their social circle. Pretending not to notice the faint loneliness she couldn't hide, I gave her a polite smile and said, "Well, as long as you're happy." Laura frowned instinctively. "I'm not." Before she could finish, she stopped herself and turned her face away awkwardly. Seeing the old suitcase in my hand, Laura suddenly realized something. "You're running away from home?" I shook my head. "No, it's summer vacation. I'm going back home to harvest early rice." Laura looked confused. "Isn't your home right?" She stopped halfway, suddenly remembering I had only been taken back to the Ito family a few months ago. When she learned I was going back to the countryside, her curiosity was piqued. She said, "I've never been to the countryside before. Is harvesting early rice fun?" I thought for a moment and said, "At least. I think it's more interesting than shopping." Laura patted her cheeks and told me to stay put while she went to get something. A few minutes later, the Mu family's driver pulled up in front of the villa. Laura rolled down the backseat window and waved at me. "Get in, I'll go with you." Chapter 17. 3 hours later, outskirts of the city, the car stopped in front of a modest 2-story house. Hearing the engine, my grandmother came out to greet us, leaning on her cane. When I was 12, my parents died in a car accident. Since then, I had been living with my grandmother. Seeing me return home, she was happy, but also a little heartbroken as she reached out to touch my face. "George, you look thinner. Is studying in the city very tiring?" I smiled at her and nodded firmly. "It is tiring, but the new school has better resources and stronger teachers. The teachers say that at this rate, I might even get into Capital University in the future." I introduced Laura to my grandmother. Grandma pinched Laura's cheek and said cheerfully, "So you're my future granddaughter-in-law? Then you should call me Grandma along with George." Hearing that, Laura's face instantly turned red. She opened her mouth, thought for a long time, realized she couldn't come up with any rebuttal, and could only softly call out, "Grandma." For the next few weeks, life was simple and peaceful. Laura insisted on working in the fields with me. After I taught her how to harvest rice, she started competing with me over who could work faster. I had thought that a pampered young lady like her wouldn't last long, but for some reason, maybe because of all the walking she did while shopping, her stamina was surprisingly good. She didn't seem to get tired at all, which only fueled my competitive spirit. Under the eaves not far away, Grandma was chatting with a few of her old friends. One of the aunties looked at us working in the fields and asked curiously, "Big sister, is that the granddaughter-in-law your George brought back from the city?" At that moment, Laura tied up a neat and sturdy bundle of rice stalks. Her eyes sparkled as she happily walked over to me, holding it up like a treasure for me to see, her movements unconsciously leaning closer to me. I remained calm and casually reached out to pat her on the head. Watching this scene, Grandma fanned herself and smiled without saying a word. The auntie understood immediately and said, "The city girl is really pretty. Such long legs, and she works so efficiently too." Grandma chuckled and said, "Now that's what you call women holding up half the sky." Chapter 18. A few weeks later, Laura had not only mastered harvesting, plowing, and transplanting rice seedlings, but had even become familiar with the dogs at the village entrance. With the new semester approaching, I applied to live on campus. The night before returning to school, 2 cars stopped at the village entrance. For the past month, Willow and Sophia had both been confined at home preparing their overseas applications. This time, they had finally managed to sneak out to see me. Willow somehow got her hands on several large boxes of fireworks and dragged us to an open area on the hillside behind the village. Under the night sky, everything was quiet. Willow lit the fuse. Bang, bang. Fireworks shot into the sky, bursting into brilliant blooms against the darkness. Watching the boxes empty out in an instant, Laura muttered, "Fireworks in the village are so expensive, 20,000 per box, and they're gone in seconds." Willow smugly patted the remaining boxes beside her and said, "That's why I bought 10 boxes. The shop owner even gave me a discount, only 180,000. I smiled politely, not telling them that if I had bought them, it would have cost at most a few hundred per box. Fireworks continued to light up the sky, illuminating the faces of the 4 of us. Willow and Sophia exchanged a glance, both looking somewhat guilty as they said, "George, there's something we have to tell you." Amid the constant explosions of fireworks, they told me everything about that dog training game, from beginning to end. This time, there were no parents forcing them, no need to keep up appearances. Willow looked at me, her eyes more serious than ever before, and said, "George, I'm sorry, I really am sorry." Willow's attitude toward me had begun with arrogant disdain. Born with a silver spoon, she had always gotten whatever she wanted, except when it came to me. As I lost my memory again and again, she repeatedly failed. Her former arrogance and contempt gradually turned into an obsession. At that moment, I didn't say whether I forgave her or not. Instead, I looked up at the fireworks flickering in the sky and said, "Your father helped me. I won't hold it against you anymore." "Willow, you have a very good father." For some reason, Willow seemed to interpret that differently. The tips of her ears quietly turned red as she said, My dad likes you a lot too. He really approves of you." Her voice grew softer and softer until she finally turned away, blushing, and went off to grab some water. After she left, Sophia quietly stepped to my side. She said, "George, I'm sorry. At the beginning, I really did have prejudices against you, but as we spent time together, your diligence and your unwavering focus, those qualities quietly drew me in." After speaking, she lowered her gaze shyly, her porcelain-like cheeks faintly flushed. Sophia's appearance was too deceptive. It made people overlook the commanding, superior way she treated others. Out of jealousy toward Willow's closeness to me, and through repeated ambiguous interactions, she had gradually become addicted to the thrill. Compared to Willow, she was actually even more arrogant and self-centered. Seeing that I only smiled without responding, Sophia let out a soft sigh and said, "George, I know you don't remember anything, but I'm willing to start over with you, even if it takes 1,000 or 10,000 times. I still want to begin again with you." I sensed the obsession hidden beneath her words and subtly turned away, only to bump into Laura. Instinctively, I steadied her by the shoulders, then quickly let go. Laura lowered her head, her voice soft as she said, "I'm sorry, George. I shouldn't have gone along with them before. From now on, every summer, let's come back together to help Grandma harvest rice." Chapter 19. As new fireworks bloomed in the sky. Seeing Willow return, Sophia changed the subject and asked, "George, is your amnesia something you were born with? Is there any way to cure it?" Hearing this, Willow and Laura also came closer. I thought for a moment and said, "The first time it happened was the day I was brought back to the Ito family. That day, it rained heavily. I got soaked on the way there and even had a slight fever. When I arrived at the Ito villa, the servants searched for a long time before finding a jersey that fit me. After I showered and came out, Makoto saw what I was wearing and suddenly flew into a rage. Without asking anything, he rushed at me and tried to hit me. I reacted almost instinctively and fought back. Then Makoto clutched his chest, nearly collapsing. Only then did I learn that the jersey I was wearing was a signed one he had treasured since childhood, and that he had a congenital heart condition. Seeing Makoto become distressed, the Ito couple were furious and ordered me kneel down and apologize to Makoto. Right now, the parents I had longed for so much, upon seeing me for the first time, wore expressions of disgust and anger, and ordered me to kneel. I stood there stubbornly, until Mr. Ito kicked the back of my knee. At that moment, burning with a fever, my knees hit the ground. My body felt alternately hot and cold. It was as if, the moment I knelt, my dignity was crushed as well. So I struggled to stand back up and continued to stare back at him through gritted teeth. Later, I fainted from the fever. When I woke up, facing the complicated expressions of the Ito couple, I instinctively pretended to have lost my memory, acting as if I had forgotten everything that had just happened. I clearly saw it. There was a flicker of relief in her eyes. So I think, my amnesia is probably a kind of self-protection mechanism of my brain. My tone was calm, as if I were telling someone else's story. Of course, all of this was told to me later by the Ito family's cook. I don't remember any of it, so naturally, I don't feel much about it. Everyone fell silent. In truth, whether it was the Ito family's cold treatment or the girls' dog training game, perhaps those things had hurt me before, but they had never made me see myself as a victim. Back then, due to a nurse's mistake, 2 babies had been switched. Although I hadn't grown up in a wealthy family, my adoptive parents loved me deeply. They passed away in an accident when I was 12, but fortunately, I still had my kind grandmother. My childhood was a happy one. I grew up surrounded by love. So when I heard about Makoto and his group's dog training game, I even felt a bit of pity. How empty must someone be to need to trample others just to confirm their own worth? The fireworks gradually faded. After a long silence, Willow spoke, her voice choked with emotion. George, if you hadn't been switched at birth back then. Sophia nodded gently. Then the 4 of us would have grown up together. Hearing that, Laura suddenly realized something and said, "Ah, then wouldn't that make me George's fiancé?" Willow rolled her eyes. "Oh, shut up. You just want to take advantage because he won't go shopping with you, right?" She stood up to push Laura, but Sophia laughed and stopped her. The 3 of them quickly fell into playful banter again. As for me, my expression remained calm as I slowly lifted my gaze toward the distance. Chapter 20. With the college entrance exams approaching, Willow and the others tacitly stopped bothering me. I moved into a single dorm room at the academy and no longer had to tutor Makoto. The tuition at Ito Aristocratic Academy was extremely high, but fortunately, the scholarship established by Chairman Liu was even more astonishing, not only freeing me completely from financial dependence on the Ito family, but even allowing me to save quite a bit. On the day of the college entrance exam, the weather was clear and pleasant. After the final exam ended, as I walked out of the exam hall, 3 slender figures were already waiting at the school gate. Willow leaned against the entrance. The moment she saw me, her eyes lit up, and she ran toward me holding a box of fireworks. Sophia followed a step behind. She had dressed up specially today, wearing a well-tailored white dress. As she approached me, she carried a faint, sweet fragrance. With a gentle smile, Sophia lifted the delicate cake in her hands and said, "George, you've worked hard on the exams. I thought I should bring something useful." Hearing that, Willow's eyes narrowed dangerously. Just as she was about to flare up, Laura's voice rang out. Not far away, Laura was smiling brightly, waving at us enthusiastically as she called out, "George, come on. Let's go back to Grandma's house and harvest rice." On the day the results were released, when I opened the score-checking page, I wasn't surprised to see a blank screen. It had been blocked. Admissions offices from top universities flooded the Ito family's phones with calls. When Mr. Ito called me, his voice sounded strained as he said, "George, you're the provincial top scorer. Congratulations." Only then did I learn that Makoto, whose performance had been declining throughout his final year, had become unstable under pressure and was caught cheating during the exam. His results were cancelled. On the phone, Mr. Ito paused before continuing. "George, your mother was greatly affected by this. She's currently recuperating at the hillside villa on the outskirts. Her condition isn't good. Could you come back for a visit?" I thought about it for a moment, then agreed. Chapter 21. Hillside Villa. I walked into the master bedroom and saw Mrs. Ito lying on the bed. When she saw me enter, her expression turned a little unnatural. It seemed like she was waiting for me to speak first, but I truly didn't know what to say. So we just looked at each other in silence. After a long pause, I walked to the bedside, took out a bankbook, and said, Mrs. Ito, this is 100,000 that I've saved. Since the day I came to the Ito family, I've been working part-time, and with the scholarship added, it should be enough to repay what you've spent on me. Before I could finish, Mrs. Ito suddenly sat up, staring at me in disbelief. What do you mean by this? She slapped the bankbook out of my hand, her voice sharp as she said, just because we said a few things to you, you're going to cut ties with your own biological parents. Seeing this, I crouched down, picked up the bankbook, and placed it neatly on the bedside table. When she saw my calm expression, panic finally appeared on Mrs. Ito's face. She said, "Son, Makoto has always been weak, so I had no choice but to pay more attention to him. But haven't we done anything for you? Your father and I have been helping you look into overseas schools. Have you ever appreciated that?" They had indeed planned to send me abroad, but I had also told them many times, Capital University was my dream since childhood. I didn't want to go abroad, not only because spoken English was my weakness, but also because I wanted to stay close to my grandmother. Seeing that I remained unmoved, Mrs. Ito's voice began to tremble as she said, "George, do you really have to be this heartless? What have we done to wrong you? Tell me." I looked at her. I thought of that rainy day, of the blinding stage lights at the parent meeting, of how I had lived in the Ito house for half a year, yet all my belongings could still fit into a single small suitcase. I didn't answer. I only said softly, "Mom, goodbye." Mrs. Ito reached out to grab my sleeve, but caught nothing. As I turned to leave, I heard suppressed sobbing behind me. I hadn't even reached the door when several men in black suddenly rushed in, grabbing my arms and twisting them behind my back with such force that I couldn't move at all. I struggled and shouted, "Who sent you? What are you trying to do?" At that moment, Mr. Ito slowly stepped out from behind them, looking at me being restrained. His face was full of disappointment as he said, "George, we had everything planned out for you. Since you and Makoto can't get along, then one of you goes abroad, and the other stays to inherit the family business, perfect for both sides. Makoto is in poor health, so naturally it's more reassuring for him to stay by our side. That's also why we had you tutor him before." He signaled for the bodyguards to take my phone, his expression cold and hard as he said, "But you've disappointed us too much. You've become a mental burden for Makoto. If we don't send you abroad, he won't be able to recover. Reflect on yourself for a few days. After the application deadline passes, I'll come talk to you about applying to overseas schools." With that, the door slammed shut with a bang and was locked from the outside. Chapter 22. My room was guarded by bodyguards in shifts. Meals were delivered on time, but aside from that, I wasn't allowed any contact with the outside world. The Ito family was determined to keep me confined until the application deadline passed, publicly claiming that I had gone abroad on vacation. I didn't smash the door or resist. Instead, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the concrete ground outside. There was no way I could jump from here, so I began tearing the bedsheets and curtains into strips, secretly weaving them into a rope. On the second day of my confinement, Makoto came. He had lost a lot of weight, his expression gloomy as he said, "George, the Mu family has come to break off the engagement. Laura Mu said the one she was originally promised to was you. The Liu group and the Kim family are also pressuring our parents, insisting on seeing you. Mom and Dad are overwhelmed right now." I had just managed to hide the half-finished rope behind me when Makoto let out a cold laugh. "George, you've taken my parents, my family background, my grades, and now even my fiancé. You must be feeling pretty proud of yourself, huh?" I met his gaze expressionlessly and said, "Makoto, are you really afraid that I'll take what belongs to you, or are you jealous that I don't need those things, and yet I'm still living better than you?" Makoto completely lost his temper. He rushed at me again, but I flipped him over and landed a few punches before the bodyguards pulled us apart. That was when they discovered the rope I had hidden. That night, dinner was not delivered. On the third day of my confinement, it rained heavily, just like the day I had first returned to the Ito family. Curled up on the bed, dizzy with hunger, I suddenly heard a loud crash from downstairs in the villa. Then came hurried footsteps and chaotic voices. As I was still wondering what was happening, I suddenly noticed that, besides the sound of rain, there seemed to be something else outside my window. Supporting myself against the wall, I walked to the window. In the rain, Sophia was standing below. She was completely soaked. When she saw me, she pointed at an air cushion that had somehow been brought there, then spread her arms toward me. She said, "George, jump." The roles had reversed. I immediately understood what was happening. Without a second of hesitation, I climbed out the window and leaped down. However, weakened by hunger, I couldn't control my landing. I crashed onto the air cushion, then rolled clumsily off to the side. Sophia rushed forward to catch me, but I dragged her down as well, and we both tumbled onto the muddy grass. After catching our breath, she quickly said, Laura had people crash through the front gate of the Ito house. Everyone's gathered at the front now. Run toward the back, there's someone waiting to help you there. I nodded. Without looking back, I got up and staggered toward the backyard. Chapter 23. By the small gate in the backyard, Willow stood there holding an umbrella, anxiously looking around. The moment she saw me appear through the curtain of rain, her eyes lit up. We grabbed each other's hands and ran. After turning through several winding paths, we finally reached a main road. By the roadside, a van was parked, and beside it stood a bald middle-aged man. When he saw Willow, he quickly walked over with an umbrella and said, "Miss, what's going on here? Didn't you say there was a wild top scorer roaming around here?" Only then did I notice the logo of the Capital University admissions office on the van. I immediately raised my hand and said, "Sir, that's me." I climbed into the back seat and was about to close the door when Willow grabbed me. Without another word, she stuffed a bank card into my pocket. In the rain, Willow looked at me. Even though her hair was dripping wet, her smile was as bold and radiant as ever. She said, "George, there's $5 million in this card. My dad asked me to give it to you." I took the card, suddenly realizing there was a small sticker on it, a familiar golden trophy. Not far away, the sound of people approaching grew louder. Willow froze for a moment, then quickly said to the driver, "Uncle, hurry up, or it'll be too late." On the winding mountain road, the windshield wipers swung frantically. The driver kept glancing nervously at the rearview mirror, cold sweat on his forehead. There are several Escalades chasing us closely behind. Who are those people? I looked back and saw the Ito family's bodyguards' cars chasing relentlessly through the rain. If I were caught and taken back, I would definitely be sent abroad. After thinking for a moment, I said, "No idea. Maybe they're from Peking University's admissions office." At that moment, the driver's expression changed. He slowly withdrew his left hand from the window, gripped the steering wheel firmly with both hands, and his gaze suddenly turned sharp and weathered. "Kid, hold on tight." Before I could react, he slammed the accelerator to the floor. The heavy van surged forward, speeding wildly along the mountain road. The cars behind us gradually fell farther and farther away. At one sharp turn, the van executed a perfect right-angle drift, finally leaving all the pursuers far behind. I was still shaken when I noticed the driver had somehow put an unlit cigarette in his mouth. He said, "You know, back in my day, I used to rule Akina Pass." The van carried me forward at full speed, eventually breaking through the curtain of rain. In an instant, all the dampness was left behind. Brilliant sunlight poured down, illuminating the straight, open asphalt road ahead, guiding me forward. Without hesitation,